caught out with my papers. We got a letter from the 8th of April from a lady who lives in, well, she lives in the ACT, but she doesn't want me to mention her name. And she just spoke about her 76-year-old mother who had just made the finals of the Country Women's Association. The Fabulous Fashion Awards they were. She'd been working on those, and she thought a mum was a sensational lady. She clearly is, to have done all this work on a dress for those finals. We thought it sounded like a good story, a good opportunity to have a look at the CWA, which has often been the target for satire, I guess, over the years. Images of matronly country ladies trading lamington recipes and scones and so on. But obviously, for anyone who's been brought up in the bush, as I was, you realise how important the CWA is. And Lisa Forrest went along to the latest annual conference of the CWA and found that in the 80s, the CWA is much more than just tea and scones. So let's talk to Lisa and let's look at a film. Please welcome Lisa Forrest. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, Ray.
What was that, Jeff?
Yeah, what was that, Jeff?
Short people.
At least you didn't get the strip, Elise. You could...
No, don't give him any ideas.
I mean, it was a good opportunity. Obviously, we do take notice of a lot of letters, and this was a good one. It just seemed like a good excuse to go up and have a look at this organisation that has been around for how long? Since
1922. They had the first Bushwomen's Conference, which was at the Royal Easter Show in 1922 in April. And it has a really interesting history. I mean, it's sort of a really unusual organisation. I mean, it's conservative on one hand, and yet it's very forward-thinking and forward-moving. And in the beginning, they were very radical sort of women, and they were sort of branded as wowsers and things like that by the men in the country, because they were in a situation where, you know, it was a very male-dominated sort of area, and there was this mateship, and they were the little woman behind the man, and, you know, they did everything for them, but they were very lonely because they often couldn't get off that property and get any sort of break.
I remember, you know, my mum was a member of the CWA and in the bush, and at that time, certainly, given the fact that I'm very, very old, it was, I mean, communications were trouble, and telephones were community lines, and women, especially if they're on a farm, were isolated from other women. Well, there was a good fellowship, but nowadays there is television and telephones and so on. Is it still the same?
Well, I think so. I think fellowship is what they still say is the most important thing, and they have changed a lot of things over the years, in the last 66 years, in health and education and communications. But isolation is still the major problem for them. And I mean, a television is, it does bring the outside world in, but it's not somebody to talk to. It's not somebody to say, you know, oh God, it's hard at the moment with this drought and blah, 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 and this is what's happening, you know, and my husband's being a pain in the neck and all that sort of thing. Can't tell the television that.
You have the same trouble, do you?
Well, no, but I'm sure these ladies understand.
So
I think that it is still a very important problem, yeah.
Yes, no question about it. And for fellowship, and that's still the primary
and they
issue.
used to do, you know, amazing things. I mean, ride miles and miles on a horse to be able to get to somewhere to get to the meeting, and they still do it. I mean, a lot of ladies, because of the rains, it was just a couple of weeks ago, and with the floods and everything, ladies were riding, you know, 50 miles or so to the next person's property to be able to get a lift to the bus that was going to take them to Tamworth. So, you know, there were 1,200 people at this conference. It's still very strong.
So it was primarily for the Fabulous Fashion Awards or a general meeting?
Well, it was an annual general meeting,
right.
But the Fabulous Fashion Awards, usually they have something to some big event at those awards, and the Fabulous Fashion were a bit of a risk for them. They felt it was a risk because they didn't know who would sort of join, who would try. Of course, women in the bush have always been dressmakers, right. But actually doing something like this, and a lot of the ladies paraded them themselves.
Along the catwalk?
Yeah.
All right, we know you had good fun. Let's look at the film,
excellent.
and we'll come back and talk with Lisa in a moment.
For a special group of ladies, this is the highlight of their year. A joyful chorus that's much more than a song. It's an expression of delight by old friends meeting again. Come to Tamworth in rural New South Wales, and you probably expect to hear the twangs of a guitar and see the hands of Slim Dusty embedded in cement. It's the capital of country music in Australia. But this time, it's a different gathering. An invasion of women from the bush, and some have travelled thousands of country miles to be here. It's the 66th annual conference of the Country Women's Association. Each morning, over 30 busloads pull up here, delivering these ladies eager to ponder issues and pass motions. They make sure there's time for a bit of a natter, but it's really about 5 long days of work.
When does the session start?
But gossip is put aside as the dignitaries file in.
On a top, loyalty to the throne, service to the country, through country women, for country women, by country women.
The simple anthem paves the way for days of discussion on a diverse group of issues.
And so we have a resolution on the price of petrol. We're asking that there only be 2 cents difference between the country and the city prices, because country people are very isolated, you know, if they can't afford to get the petrol. And if the roads are bad, that's what you call isolation.
In her 3 years as president, Audrey Hardman has worked hard to dispel old myths.
I really think the tea and scones image has almost been put to bed, hasn't it? But when you talk about us being just tea and scones, I'm sorry if city people think that, because it's not right.
And of all the handicrafts you do, cooking is the one thing that can let you down. Because you don't know till it's cut. You do a piece of fancy work and you put a wrong stitch in, you can pull that out, or a knitting stitch. But you don't know what a cake's like until the knife goes in.
Beneath the deeper issues, in the kitchens of the town hall, there's a debate of a different kind.
Whatever cake you make, and whether it be chocolate, orange or otherwise, if it's chocolate, the flavour of the chocolate must predominate. That's very important.
So you can smell it in that one?
Yeah, I can smell something that's not right.
There's something not
And you
right
can
in
taste
it.
You've got to have a little sniff. You smell it.
There's just something.
It's not chocolate.
Yes.
No, is it?
It's not nice, is it?
No.
You smell that one. There's a real chocolate
Well, that's
flavour.
really chocolate.
Yes, yes.
Well, there
so
you are.
this is what we're looking for.
So what do you like to cook best?
Plum puddings and pound cakes.
Yes, I agree with her. I like the sultana cakes because I think as we tend to get older, our husbands like something with filling.
Right. It's easy to smile, but take a longer look and you find quite an extraordinary group of women.
For country women, by country women.
It is the old-fashioned values and traditions that have formed the base of the CWA.
We still don't term ourselves feminists, but we do call ourselves progressive thinking ladies.
Good girl. Terrific job. Good. Kathy, one. Good. Try the fan out. May. Give it all you've got. Good.
The fabulous fashion awards are the highlight of this year's conference. They've really put these ladies to the test. Not only their ability to do everything, but to move with the times.
Good girl. Good girl. Follow Jill.
After rehearsing all afternoon, it's finally arrived. The night of nights for country women all around the state. The girls are here backstage for last-minute preening. It's high fashion in Tamworth. A crowded room and one full-length mirror leaves little space for vanity, but it's the last stop before parading their creations under the spotlight.
Philippa, do you want your hat now?
No, I'll get that.
Ronnie, quickly.
All hands on deck.
Improvise, straight off.
Come on, Brad, don't stand there, darling. Yeah, we'll grab a hand and get some stuff off the stage.
The parade is underway, from Australiana to yesteryear fashions. The women waiting their turn are proud of their efforts. Have you always been a dressmaker then?
Yes, I've been sewing since I was 10 or 12 and really enjoyed it. It's my recreational activity between drenching sheep and fixing fences with my husband.
Have you always been a dress designer?
Well, I don't know whether you'd call me a dress designer, but I've always made clothes and loved sewing, so I guess that's it.
So are you a bit nervous about tonight, or are you okay?
Oh, I'm okay.
This is 19 Cynthia Smith. Folk art, painting and other crafts. She has become involved in CWA through the help of her mother. Cynthia Smith, number 19. Now I shall introduce you to Coral Mitten number 20, Lucky Last, Dreadful French, Southwest Brew. 1945, and her bridesmaid, White Crepe, worn in 1918 and 1945. Beautiful fashions from yesterday. And all the frocks in our wedding gown segment were owned by Mrs.
What do you think of tonight?
I think it's fabulous.
Do you? You're not dressed designers yourselves?
Pardon?
You're not dressed designers yourselves?
We do dressmaking, but I'm not a designer, but I can appreciate all the beautiful gowns. Absolutely, as they say, fabulous, aren't they?
Winner of section 2 is Mrs. Beth Furman, Tamora branch.
And for the winners, it's all a bit overwhelming.
Thank you so much for making this such a wonderful, wonderful. It's not just the night, it's the whole few days of the CWA. I think people associate it with menopause and blue rinses.
Whether it's cake bakes, meetings, or fabulous fashions, it's pioneering spirit that brought these women together, and they share it easily.
And I'm just going to have a drink now.
You'd think it would be hard to top a night of fabulous fashions, but the following evening, they very nearly did. Rehearsing by mail, the ladies put together a 2-hour musical celebration of Australia's history through the eyes of country women.
You know, you can't talk about Australia without having to bring the CWA into it eventually.
And the cockatoo alighted on a bough near the blackfellow and began calling and talking down to him.
You have problems and you go to your CWA meeting and
sort them out.
And you find everybody understands what you're talking about and you forget about all your home problems for a little while, and so it's really wonderful.
Robert! Oh, where can that boy be? Robert! Here I am, Mother.
I think why the city people don't understand all the time is because of the lack of communication between the country and the city, and through CWA you have a wonderful communication system.
All over the nation, between 1939 and 1945, CWA rooms and community halls were utilised for making sheepskin vests and repairing uniforms.
I mean, the women in the association are just so marvellous. They've got this initiative and,
Yes.
and they seem to be able to just do these things, don't they?
After spending a few days with the CWA, you can't help joining in with the enthusiasm. Two great assets shine through. They don't mind taking a risk, and they can always laugh at themselves.
Tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin.
Good fun. There were some great hats there. Did anyone actually fall over that step as they were going up there to walk on the catwalk?
And I would have, that's for sure. I mean, I think there were a couple of trips, but they were fine. I mean, they were really funny, great. We had such a good time. You know, they'd come up to you afterwards and they'd say, and you thought we were a staid bunch, didn't you? Not at all.
And they weren't. You've got a letter for us, but just while you're getting that letter from this latest book, I have to say that the editing room where Paul DeRosa, our editor, is, and Hilary, the producer in that one, they've spent the last 2 weeks looking at that film. And so I've heard all those tracks, and I've heard so much laughter, not just from the film, but from you, Mob, as well. I knew it was going to be good fun. All right, that's
Yeah, Serving the Country is the book, and it's coming out this week about the history of the New South Wales CWA, which is where it all started. But there was this book that was a letter that was sent to the President, and it was marked a very urgent matter. And it said it was from the husbands of the ladies who were in the CWA branch in Burrawa. And it said, now you understand that elastic only stretches to a certain point and then breaks. As we men are only elastic in the hands of our womenfolk, we find that the elastic has been overstretched and we now demand justice. Now, some of the reasons that they gave is, number one was neglect of house duties. Number two, the irregularity, or the irregularity, which I suppose is the regularity of meals. Number three, the trousers without buttons. 4, sockses without feet. And number 5, the disturbance of husbands from their slumbers by late homecomings of their wives.
Only right and proper too. Thanks, Lise, for that. We thank Hilary, we thank our film crew of Ben and Tony as well, and Paul Roach. Would you please thank Hilary? Lise, and after break, thanks, Lise, good fun. After break, the Silver Foxes of Aussie music, Brian Cadd and Max Merritt, rock the clock back next.